the land of breathtaking landscapes, hobbits, and emptiness? Yes, you heard that right. Even though New Zealand is larger than you might think and has a climate that's perfect for living, nearly 80% of the country is uninhabited. But why is that? In this video, we'll dive deep into the surprising reasons behind this emptiness, from geographical obstacles to historical choices and economic realities. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this beautiful country is so eerily empty. Let's get started. New Zealand consists of two main islands, the North Island and the South Island. Together, they are larger than the United Kingdom and stretch across an area comparable to the east coast of the United States, from Florida to Pennsylvania. And yet, just over 5 million people live there, while the United Kingdom is home to nearly 69 million inhabitants. That's a massive difference. And what makes it even stranger, the climate in New Zealand is almost identical to that of the United Kingdom, temperate with no extremely hot summers or icy winters. Part of the explanation lies in the unusual way New Zealand is populated. Almost everyone lives on the North Island. More than 75% of the population has settled there, and nearly half of them live in and around Auckland, the country's largest city. Auckland is strategically located, with natural harbors and fertile soil, making it a logical place to live. But on the South Island, it's a completely different story. Even though the South Island is larger, less than a quarter of the population lives there, and they are spread across small towns and villages. A large part of the South Island is practically deserted, with a population density comparable to that of the sparsely populated areas in Drenthe or Friesland. But why exactly? Here comes the first major reason: mountains. The South Island is crossed by the Southern Alps, a massive mountain range that spans the entire length of the island. With peaks rising above 3,700 meters, these mountains are not only stunning but also a huge barrier to human settlement and agriculture. The eastern side of the island lies in the rain shadow of these mountains, meaning it is dry and barren. On the western side, it rains almost constantly, making the area difficult to inhabit. In short, the South Island is a paradise for adventurers and hikers, but a nightmare for anyone looking to build a city. And this is just the beginning. Then there's the location. New Zealand is literally in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thousands of kilometers of ocean. The nearest neighbors are the Australians, almost 2,000 kilometers away. This isolated location makes it extremely expensive to import and export goods, preventing the country from ever becoming a major industrial or commercial power. This geographical isolation has led New Zealand to focus primarily on agriculture, and that brings us to another reason why the country is so empty. New Zealand doesn't have the soil to grow crops on a large scale, but it is perfect for livestock farming. That's why you'll find more sheep and cows than people in New Zealand. More than half of the land is used for livestock farming, which simply means there's less space for cities and towns. So, the meme that there are more sheep than people in New Zealand is absolutely true. There are nearly 27 million sheep, compared to just 5.1 million people. And thanks to those sheep, New Zealand is the largest exporter of sheep products in the world. This creates a strong economy but also limits space for residential areas. Another important reason lies in New Zealand's history. While other islands like Great Britain and Japan were inhabited thousands of years ago, New Zealand remained completely uninhabited until the 13th century when the Maori arrived. European settlers didn't come in large numbers until the late 19th century. This means New Zealand was thousands of years behind in terms of population growth and urban development compared to other countries. And then there were immigration rules that certainly didn't help. Until the mid-20th century, there were strict restrictions on non-white immigrants, which severely limited population growth. Despite all the empty space, New Zealand faces a serious housing problem. Most immigrants settle in Auckland, the country's largest city. Between 1996 and 2016, more than half of New Zealand's total population growth happened in this region alone. This has led to enormous pressure on the housing market. In 2022, the average house price in Auckland was over 1.1 million US dollars. That means an average home costs more than 25 times the average annual salary. For comparison, In London, that's about 14 times the average annual income. This makes Auckland one of the least affordable cities in the world to buy a house. Why are house prices so high? It comes down to a combination of factors: limited building land, mountains, national parks, and farmland restrict the available space, strict building regulations. It takes years to get permits for a new construction. High demand, low supply. Due to high immigration rates, demand for housing keeps rising. The result: more and more people are forced to rent or move to smaller towns, meaning that much of New Zealand will likely remain empty for the foreseeable future. But New Zealand isn't just held back by mountains and rain. Volcanoes and earthquakes are also serious issues. The country lies right on the boundary between two tectonic plates, the Pacific and the Australian plate. This creates a constant threat of earthquakes, especially on the South Island and around Wellington. In addition, there are multiple active volcanoes on the North Island, which regularly cause small eruptions. While this does create fertile soil, it also makes certain areas risky to live in. The cost of these dangers. Regular earthquakes force people to reinforce homes and infrastructure, which is expensive. Active volcanoes keep large parts of the North Island uninhabited. In short, New Zealand is beautiful, but it's literally a moving puzzle. And if your home could be destroyed by an earthquake every few years, you'd probably prefer to keep a safe distance too. New Zealand is famous for its stunning nature and high quality of life. But that beauty comes at a price. To protect nature, strict regulations apply to construction projects. National parks and protected areas take up almost a third of the country's land. Building is not allowed here, which further limits space for housing. The irony: these protected areas make New Zealand attractive to tourists, but make it nearly impossible for its own population to expand. And although the country has plenty of forests and grasslands, less than 2% of the land is suitable for growing crops. For comparison, in the Netherlands, that figure is over 30%. As a result, New Zealand has to import almost all its wheat, corn, and other crops, which drives up the cost of living. This also explains why the agricultural sector focuses mainly on livestock farming, with more sheep and cows than people. New Zealand has a relatively young population, but birth rates are declining. In 2010, the birth rate was still exactly at the replacement level of 2.1 children per woman, but by 2022 it had fallen to 1.8. Without immigration, the population would start to shrink. The solution: the country continues to depend on immigrants, especially from Asia. Most new residents come from China, India, and the Philippines. But even this influx is not fast enough to stop the aging population. It is expected that the population will continue to grow slowly, but that Auckland in particular will continue to overflow with new residents, while most of the country remains empty. Even with high immigration numbers and population growth, it seems unlikely that New Zealand will ever truly feel crowded. The natural obstacles are simply too big. Mountains and volcanoes make large areas uninhabitable. A lack of flat, fertile land limits farming opportunities. High costs of importing and exporting slow down economic growth. Strict environmental regulations and national parks restrict building space. Even if the country were to double its population, most people would still concentrate around Auckland and Wellington, while the South Island would largely remain empty. And so we return to our original question: why is 80% of New Zealand empty? It's a combination of rugged nature, an isolated location, a strong focus on livestock farming, and a history that delayed population growth.